When we took over the original nursery up here, there was a cost of about $10,000 per annum on chemicals alone, and we've now managed over the sort of duration to get that down to virtually zero. I'm Simon Smith. I'm the owner of the Plantsmith, the nursery here in Howard Springs, just out of Darwin. Our main crops are edible plants. We grow a lot of herbs and we grow a lot of seedlings and things like potted tomatoes and so forth. We also grow potted colour and a range of trees and shrubs as well. It's a relatively small market up here, so you need to be quite diversified in what you do. We took over the site, this particular site, about 9 years ago now. It was an existing nursery that had been closed for a couple of years. So the site itself was in really good condition, the infrastructure and the nursery had been well set up, but we needed to change it to bring it up to, I guess, a higher standard for the sorts of plants we were growing. So we added a lot of benching to bring plants up off the ground. There was some gravel beds, but in our tropical climate you need a little bit more airflow. Plants grown on the ground, particularly through the wet season, we find quite challenging to keep the hygiene levels high enough. Our main market was going into the retailers and the bigger chain stores, so the need for the crops to be of a high standard to meet the public's expectations was part of the reason we looked at upgrading the facility that was here. One of the things I've always been interested in is, can we grow plants in a more, I guess, sustainable fashion, but also from a staff and my own personal perspective. I didn't like the massive amounts of chemicals I saw being used in the growing of plants, and particularly up here in the tropics there was a tendency to use a huge amount of chemicals to try and control particularly fungal diseases, but also the common sort of nursery pests. So my interest was trying to find a better way, and this site gave us that opportunity, really starting from scratch almost. So we looked at what chemicals we didn't need to use, and in the first 12 months we got to a point where we'd eliminated the use of any chemicals that weren't organically certified. The fundamental way we manage the operation here is based around the FMS system. So really there's sort of two keys to that, and that's crop hygiene and crop management. You need the basic things that farm management systems give you, which is good nutrition, clean water, good high hygiene. But for us it was about looking at ways we could control pests and diseases without chemical intervention. So where perhaps nature was an opportunity rather than a chemical solution. I think what I'd encourage people who aren't in the FMS scheme to think about is the rigour it brings to the way you manage your nursery. It's a continual improvement process, and I know from taking over a nursery which was full of bad practices to where I am today, if it hadn't been for FMS, there's no way we would have achieved the sort of standards we've got here. And I think it's also about profitability. People need to look at the end game as far as how profitable they are, and the whole risk management process you go through with the annual audits and also the assistance you get. Every nursery is obviously different, but if you can apply that fundamental of trying to shift away from chemical use wherever possible, and you head down that path, then you'll find it works. You'll find it doesn't matter where you are, you'll find a solution to almost every problem in your nursery that involves nature and common sense rather than chemicals.